Have you ever woken up one morning and thought to yourself, why am I even doing all of this? You go through the same routine, brush your teeth, drink your coffee, open your emails, face the same endless tasks. And yet somewhere deep inside, there's this silent emptiness whispering that none of it really matters. It's like life has quietly lost its color, and you are just moving through the motions of existence. Most people won't admit this out loud, but many of us know exactly what it feels like. That strange heaviness when you realize that everything you've been striving for, career, recognition, comfort, doesn't really fill the gap inside. It's not depression in the medical sense, nor just a bad day. It's something deeper. It's the frightening suspicion that maybe your life has lost its meaning. This realization can be terrifying, because meaning is not something we can simply buy, borrow, or download. When it seems absent, every achievement feels hollow. Think about it. How many times have you celebrated something you thought would finally make you feel complete, only to find the joy fading almost instantly? You got the promotion, but the excitement lasted for a week. You entered the new relationship, but soon the old anxieties came back. You reached a goal, but a new restlessness replaced the old one. And then comes the thought that truly unsettles you. If nothing ever feels enough, what's the point of continuing? That question, though brutal, is also strangely honest. It forces us to confront a truth that society often hides behind entertainment, consumption, and constant distraction. But here's the thing. This moment of emptiness is not the end of your story. In fact, it may be the beginning of a more authentic one. The Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius, who ruled over one of the greatest empires in history, wrestled with the same feeling. Imagine that. The most powerful man in the world, questioning whether life itself held meaning. And yet instead of despair, he discovered something that changed the way he lived and can change the way we see our own struggles. Before we explore that, let me ask you, have you ever dared to look at this emptiness not as a curse but as a signal, an invitation to search for something deeper? If you have, stay with me. This journey might not give you quick fixes, but it could give you a new way to see yourself, your challenges, and the meaning you've been searching for. And if at any point this resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share your experience in the comments, like this video, and subscribe. You might be surprised at how many others are silently wrestling with the very same question. What if this sense of emptiness you feel was not a dead end, but actually a doorway? Imagine if, instead of seeing the absence of meaning as a void, you could recognize it as space being cleared for something greater to enter. Picture your life like a room that has been cluttered for years with objects you thought you needed. Titles, possessions, constant approval. And suddenly one day, you realize the room is suffocating you. What if the emptiness is simply the clearing away of all that noise, preparing the space for something more authentic? Let's stretch this vision further. Imagine waking up one morning not with dread, but with clarity. Instead of asking, what's the point? You ask, what can I give today? Instead of dragging yourself through repetitive tasks, you begin to see each action as a chance to serve, to build, to love. The same job, the same coffee, the same commute, but a completely different way of living them. It's as if the colors of life return, not because the world outside has changed, but because you have. Think of how your relationships might transform. No longer would you demand from them the impossible burden of giving you meaning. Instead, you would approach them as opportunities to express meaning already discovered within. Imagine what it would feel like to look at your partner, your children, your colleagues, and instead of asking, what do I get from them? You naturally begin to ask, what can I offer? The emptiness begins to dissolve, replaced by a sense of quiet strength. Now picture the long view of your life. Years later, when you look back, instead of regret for wasted time, you carry a sense of gratitude for having faced this crisis honestly. Because you didn't run from the question of meaning, you walked straight into it. And on the other side, you found a life not based on constant chasing but on grounded purpose. It's a radical shift, from emptiness as a sentence of despair to emptiness as a canvas where something real can finally be painted. This is not an easy shift. It requires honesty, courage, and daily practice, but it is possible. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped treating emptiness as an enemy and instead began to see it as your teacher? Most people believe that meaning in life comes from achieving something, building a successful career, finding the perfect partner, traveling the world, or leaving behind some remarkable legacy. But what if that's exactly why so many people feel lost? The belief itself might be the problem. Here's the disruptive truth. Meaning is not something you achieve. It is not a trophy waiting at the end of a race. It is something you live out moment by moment through the way you respond to life as it actually is. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he wasn't writing from a place of constant victory or satisfaction. He was often tired, grieving, and overwhelmed. Yet he discovered that life does not stop having meaning simply because it feels heavy or repetitive. In fact, it is precisely within the ordinary and the painful moments that meaning reveals itself. Think about it. The common narrative tells you to keep chasing. More money, more success, more experiences, because meaning supposedly lies just beyond the next milestone. But if that were true, why do so many people, even those who have everything, still collapse into despair? The hidden reality is that chasing meaning outside of yourself often leads to a deeper emptiness. Now here's the disruptive perspective. What if meaning is less about finding and more about creating? Not creating in the sense of inventing something out of nothing, but creating through your choices, through the way you face suffering, through the dignity you bring to ordinary duties, through the love you choose to express when no one is watching. This is where the rupture happens. Instead of waiting for life to hand you a sense of purpose, you begin to realize that the responsibility is yours. Meaning is not a prize to be discovered, but a path you walk through character, virtue, and resilience. It may feel unsettling at first because if meaning is not given to you, it means you cannot blame life or fate or chance for its absence. But hidden in that discomfort is freedom. You are no longer a passive recipient of whatever life throws at you. You are a participant, a co-creator of significance. So let me turn the question upside down. Instead of asking, what is the meaning of my life? Try asking, how am I choosing to live so that life itself becomes meaningful? This simple shift can dismantle years of illusion, and that is where the real journey begins. When Marcus Aurelius faced the crushing weight of leading an empire, he did not turn to external rewards for solace. He turned inward, writing lines that were never meant to be published, only to remind himself of what truly mattered. In Meditations, he notes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These were not empty words. They were survival tools, forged in the chaos of war, political intrigue, and personal loss. Philosophers like Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, known as the Stoics, did not promise a life free from suffering. Instead, they taught that meaning emerges precisely when we learn to stand firm in the storm. They insisted that the measure of a life is not comfort or recognition, but character. And this insight remains as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Psychology has echoed this truth. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning that the deepest freedom we have is the ability to choose our response, even in unbearable circumstances. In the concentration camps, where everything was stripped away, dignity, possessions, even family, Frankl discovered that the ultimate human freedom is the refusal to surrender one's inner attitude. Like Marcus Aurelius centuries earlier, Frankl realized that meaning is not handed to us. It is forged in how we respond to what life demands. Why does this matter to you? Because it means you don't have to wait for the perfect job, the perfect relationship, or the perfect conditions to live a meaningful life. Meaning is not a prize at the end of the road. It is hidden in the way you live today, how you treat the stranger who crosses your path, how you face your disappointments, how you carry yourself in silence when no one else notices. The authority of philosophy and psychology converge on the same point. Life may never answer your demand for meaning in a single sentence. Instead, it quietly asks you, day after day, to embody meaning through your actions. The real question is not, what is the point of life? But rather, how will you give life a point through the way you live it? And that shift, from waiting for meaning to living meaning, is where despair begins to turn into strength. One of the reasons life can feel meaningless is because of an invisible dynamic most of us never stop to question. We are conditioned from a young age to tie our sense of worth to results: grades in school, career success, financial stability, social approval. Over time, this conditioning becomes a silent script running in the background. If I achieve enough, then my life will matter. But here's the hidden trap. No matter how much you achieve, the script simply rewrites itself, demanding more. Think about the cycle. You set a goal, you reach it, and for a brief moment you feel a sense of satisfaction. But almost immediately, a new dissatisfaction creeps in. The goalpost moves forward and you start chasing again. This invisible loop creates the illusion of progress, but deep down, it leaves you emptier each time. The problem isn't your ambition. It's that you're asking external achievements to answer an internal question, and they never can. Another invisible dynamic is comparison. Without even realizing it, you measure your worth against others. Friends on social media, colleagues at work, even family members. But comparison is a thief of meaning, because it shifts your attention outward instead of inward. Instead of asking, "What values am I living by?" you find yourself obsessing over whether you're ahead or behind. This constant measuring drains the soul, leaving you restless, anxious, and unsatisfied no matter what you accomplish. There's also the cultural narrative that comfort equals happiness. You are told that the purpose of life is to minimize struggle and maximize pleasure. But paradoxically, the more we avoid discomfort, the more fragile we become. Meaning does not grow in comfort zones. It grows in challenge, responsibility, and sacrifice. By trying to engineer a life free of pain, we accidentally build a life free of depth. These invisible patterns, achievement addiction, comparison, and the worship of comfort, create a silent cage. You may not even see the bars, but you feel the confinement. They make you believe that your life lacks meaning, when in truth meaning is being suffocated under these illusions. The first step toward breaking free is simply to name them. Once you see the dynamics at work, you can begin to challenge them. You can start asking not, "Am I winning according to the world's measures?" but, "Am I living according to what truly matters?" And that single shift in focus is where real transformation begins. Life does not lose meaning. We lose sight of it. Happiness fades. Character remains. The emptiness you fear is not a punishment. It is an invitation. Meaning is not found in what you achieve, but in how you respond. Comfort does not make you stronger. Struggle does. Stop asking life to give you purpose. Start living in a way that creates it. Comparison steals joy. Service restores it. Every ordinary moment carries the potential for extraordinary meaning. The search for meaning is not about looking outward. It is about looking inward and then acting outward. You are not waiting for life to begin. Life is waiting for you to begin living with intention. These short truths may sound simple, but they are not easy. They cut through the illusions that so often distract us, exposing the raw core of what it means to live well. Each of them is like a mirror, uncomfortable at times but revealing. They remind us that meaning is not a hidden treasure we must hunt for, but a reality we must embody, here and now, with courage and humility. So, when the question rises in your heart, what is the point of all this? Hold on to one of these truths. Let it interrupt the spiral of despair. Let it remind you that even in the silence of ordinary days, you carry the power to shape life into something that matters. And perhaps the most powerful reminder of all, meaning is not out there waiting to be found. Meaning is here, waiting for you to live it. Here's a paradox that confuses many. The more you chase meaning for yourself, the more it slips away. Yet the moment you stop obsessing over your own fulfillment and begin to live for something beyond yourself, others, truth, virtue, meaning quietly appears. It's almost as if meaning refuses to be captured directly. It only arrives as a byproduct of giving yourself away. Think of it this way. If you stare directly at the sun, it blinds you. But if you walk in its light, everything around you becomes visible. Meaning works the same way. If you demand it, give me purpose, give me clarity, life grows darker. But if you focus on living with integrity, generosity, and courage, suddenly, the path becomes illuminated. Another paradox is this: suffering and meaning are inseparable. Modern culture tells us that suffering destroys meaning, that the goal of life is to escape pain. But Marcus Aurelius and later Viktor Frankl discovered the opposite. It is precisely through suffering, when you cannot rely on pleasure, status, or distraction, that the deepest forms of meaning reveal themselves. Pain can strip away illusions, forcing you to ask, what truly matters when everything else falls apart? And in that raw moment, life often answers. There is also the duality between control and surrender. We want life to obey our plans, to deliver satisfaction on our terms. But the Stoics taught that much of life is outside our control. Fate, circumstances, even how others see us. The paradox is this: by accepting what you cannot control and focusing only on what you can, your actions, your character, you gain a freedom that chasing control could never give you. In letting go, you gain more than you ever imagined. These paradoxes unsettle us because they turn our instincts upside down. We want to avoid suffering, but suffering can give birth to depth. We want to hoard meaning for ourselves, but it grows when we give. We want to control everything, but only by surrendering control do we find peace. The challenge is not to resolve these paradoxes, but to live them, to hold them in your hands like a mystery and allow them to reshape the way you see life. Because in the end, meaning does not hide from us. It hides within these tensions, waiting to be discovered by those willing to live in their depth. Imagine for a moment that you truly embraced this way of living, that you stopped demanding that life explain itself and instead chose to embody meaning through your daily actions. What would change? The first reward is an inner steadiness that no external event can take away. When your sense of purpose is no longer tied to outcomes, failures lose their power to crush you, and successes lose their power to deceive you. You become anchored, not tossed around by every storm. The second reward is freedom from comparison. When you no longer measure your worth by what others achieve, you begin to see your own path clearly. Instead of jealousy or restlessness, you feel gratitude for the role you have been given to play. You realize that life is not a race but a stewardship, an opportunity to use your time, energy, and gifts in service of something beyond yourself. That freedom brings peace, a peace that many people spend their entire lives chasing but never find. A third reward is resilience in suffering. Life will not stop being difficult. Marcus Aurelius knew this, Frankl knew this, and you know it too. But when you approach suffering, not as meaningless pain, but as a crucible for growth, the burden shifts. Struggle does not vanish, but it transforms into something bearable, even transformative. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin asking, "What can I become through this?" And perhaps the greatest reward of all, connection. When you live beyond yourself, you begin to see others differently. Instead of demanding from them, you begin to serve them. Instead of seeking validation, you offer presence. This builds relationships that are no longer based on transaction, but on authenticity. And through those bonds, you experience a sense of belonging that no amount of achievement could ever replicate. These are not abstract promises. They are lived realities, confirmed by the wisdom of history and the testimony of countless lives. The reward of choosing to live with meaning is not some distant prize at the end of life. It is a quiet transformation that begins now, in how you choose to act, to serve, to endure, and to love. The emptiness you fear today can become the soil where these rewards grow. But the choice, to live as if life matters, must be yours. To bring all of this together, let's look at the framework that underlies everything we've explored so far. At its core, the journey from emptiness to meaning rests on three interconnected pillars: awareness, responsibility, and transcendence. The first pillar is awareness. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to observe his own mind. Without awareness, we remain trapped in invisible cycles of comparison, ambition, and despair. Awareness is the light that exposes the illusions, those hidden scripts telling you that success or comfort will finally make you whole. Once you see them, you are no longer their prisoner. The second pillar is responsibility. Awareness alone is not enough. Once you recognize the emptiness, the responsibility to respond lies with you. This is where Stoicism and modern psychology converge. No one can live your life for you. You cannot delegate meaning. You cannot outsource character. Responsibility means refusing to wait passively for life to hand you purpose, and instead choosing to create it daily through action. How you work, how you speak, how you endure. The third pillar is transcendence. This does not mean escaping the world, but rising above the narrow focus on the self. Meaning emerges when you step beyond personal gratification and connect your life to something larger, whether that is service to others, pursuit of truth, or alignment with virtue. Viktor Frankl put it clearly: happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue as the unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Transcendence is the shift from "what do I get?" to "what do I give?" These three pillars form a kind of compass. Awareness tells you where you are, responsibility tells you what to do, and transcendence tells you why it matters. Together, they anchor you in a life that does not depend on luck or external approval. They allow you to face suffering without collapsing, to enjoy success without arrogance, and to live in such a way that every day, no matter how ordinary, carries dignity. This framework is not a theory to admire from a distance. It is a path to be walked, slowly, imperfectly, but consistently. And if you begin to walk it, you may discover that the question, "What is the meaning of my life?" is not something to be solved once and for all, but something to be lived, step by step, with courage and humility. So here we are. We began with a question that feels like a wound. What do I do when my life no longer seems to have meaning? And along the way, we discovered that this very emptiness can be the starting point of a deeper journey. Marcus Aurelius faced it. Viktor Frankl faced it. And now, you face it. The truth is, meaning is not something life owes you. It is something you are called to live. It is revealed not in comfort, but in courage. Not in chasing happiness, but in choosing responsibility. Not in self-absorption, but in service. Every day you are given a chance not to ask what the world owes you, but to decide how you will respond to the world. That response is where meaning hides. If you have ever felt that gnawing emptiness, that sense of being adrift, you are not alone. But you are also not powerless. The moment you stop demanding that life hand you a grand answer, and instead begin to live as if every small act could carry dignity, something changes. The emptiness softens, the fog clears, and step by step, a sense of meaning begins to grow. This is not an easy path. It requires vigilance, honesty, and resilience. But it is real. And it is available to anyone who is willing to live not just for themselves, but for something greater. That is how Marcus Aurelius found strength in the midst of empire and war. That is how Viktor Frankl found hope in the midst of despair. And that is how you too can begin to rebuild your life from the inside out. So I want to leave you with a question, not to answer quickly, but to sit with. If meaning is not something you find, but something you create, what will you choose to create with your life today? If this reflection touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's build a space where we can be honest about these struggles and walk together in the search for something deeper. And if you haven't yet, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not because it's a routine, but because together we can form a community where emptiness is not the end, but the beginning of transformation. Your life may feel like it has lost its meaning, but perhaps in truth it is waiting for you to finally start living it with intention.